Dude says.
Can you open this for me? I don't have fingernails anymore. I've been biting them again.
Jules, you're back on that train. Jules is a nail biter, folks at home. Have we pressed record? Are we starting?
Oh, yeah.
Have we started? Sure. We're live, baby. We're live.
Gracious day.
Julian, not unfortunately, I guess. A lot of people deal with this.
The worst.
He's a nail biter.
Unfortunate.
He's an anxious Andy, and bites through his nails. And so he got this nail polish that he puts on his nails that tastes like literal butthole.
Yeah, they give it to kids.
Worse than literal butthole. I'd honestly rather taste literal butthole.
Whose literal butthole, though, do you think it closely resembles?
Like Andre the Giant after a wrestling match.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can't.
My dad represented Andre the Giant back in the day.
Yeah, for immigration, right?
I don't know what it was for.
Dude, let's find a fun picture of Andre the Giant. Oh my God!
Find one that's not fun,
bro. This is the Oh
find
my
one that's
God.
not fun.
So what was the scoop with Andre the Giant? He had gigantorism or something. He had some sort of thing that, essentially, he never stopped growing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Anything that I would say right now would just be my own.
Yeah,
speculation.
He's definitely a giant.
Yeah, he was a big ass motherfucker.
He's a huge Frenchman.
How did we get on Andre the Giant? Oh yeah,
Grenoble,
I was saying I was like, how did we get on Andre the Giant? But I was saying that I'd prefer to eat or taste the defecation of Andre the Giant than what
after
this paint.
WrestleMania.
After WrestleMania, after his gnarliest fight he ever had, then the stuff that I have to paint on my fingernails to prevent myself from biting.
It's pretty incredible because you went back to chewing your nails.
Well, no, I just went back to not painting because I continue to it works. It's very effective because that taste stays with you for hours.
Right.
It's it ruins your day. You and what's
it called? What's the stuff called?
I forget. You can just Google fingernail biting stuff and it'll probably come up as the stuff that I've gotten. It's just so bitter and it stays with you and I get it on my fingers and then I eat chips. We eat chips all the time. Right. And then it gets in my mouth when I eat a chip. And I'm just I didn't bite my fingernail. I just ate a chip. I'm punished for eating a chip now.
Anytime you eat finger foods. Anything that comes between me and finger foods, gotta get rid of it.
Get out.
Get out, dude. All the best foods are finger foods.
This is the thing that gets between you and finger foods.
Top 5 finger foods. Go.
Buffalo wings, nachos, egg rolls.
Ooh.
What are those? Satay, chicken satay.
Little skewers.
Yeah, and dude, Ecuadorian footlongs.
What is an Ecuadorian footlong?
Little smokies. We call them Ecuadorian.
Ecuador. Oh man. So smokies, the little wieners are Ecuadorian footlongs.
Pigs in a blanket. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, my dad always brought that because everybody in Ecuador is short, so. My dad would
How are chips not in that top 5 list? Dude, chips are the ultimate greatest finger food.
Because I was going fast. And honestly, those things, if I had them all in front of me right now, I wouldn't go. It depends on what kind of chip it is, but dude, I'm
Wingies.
going.
Yeah, wingies are fire, dude.
What are wingies? Oh, just wings?
Wings.
Yeah.
Did we have this conversation before? How many wings you think you could eat in one sitting, Steve?
Yeah, we did.
What was the number? It was 70?
I can't remember. Yeah, probably.
The best part, I think, during that show, or I think I remember Steve's answer was, he was like, I probably couldn't eat as much as you think I'd be able to eat. We're like,
Steve's I probably
what do you think? Just give us the number, Steve. He's like, 108. It was a huge number. I was like, that's way more than I thought you'd be able to consume.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your favorite wing spot to go to across the country? You've been all over the world. Where is the best wings?
Pock, but Matt's Rotisserie and Oyster Bar. It has insane wings, and the best ones in Spokane are at Dabali.
Oh yeah, is that out Airway Heights?
Yeah. Phenomenal restaurant.
Yeah,
we're going there next week.
Sweet. Yeah, we've yet to go to Dabali.
It's brilliant.
We've been to Bali, but we've never been to
Bali.
We haven't been to Bali. That's actually double Bali. It's just short for double Bali.
Bali.
Yeah, Bali. Yeah, we've heard great things about that restaurant. We're gonna cruise out there.
Incredible spot.
Matt's Rotisserie Grill, they do a lot of really great stuff. Folks who are living or around the Seattle area who are listening to this, check out Matt's Rotisserie Bar and Grill. I'm not sure if they're open again. They were shut down.
They are.
But their nachos, also some of the greatest nachos I've ever had in the world. I've had nachos all over the globe.
Yeah.
Maybe not over the globe, just in America. I've had a lot of nachos throughout America.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite restaurant of all time. In fact, I used to work there when I was 16 as a busboy, and they'll never let me get away with walking away from this experience because I used to be the worst busboy of all time, and I would eat those chicken wings, and I would eat the fries,
Eat old food.
all the things out of the bus tub. People would be like, leave a plate of just like, it's untouched.
Coincidentally enough, though, very frowned upon during a pandemic.
Yes.
Well, it was happening. This was 8 years.
Yeah.
Not 8. I was like, geez, try to do the math. 18 years ago.
Crazy.
Wow.
I mean, I'd also slap anyone that left a wing on the plate for the bus.
Exactly, dude. That's what I was doing. Plus, I was making just as much money as I had to pay for gas to get to my job back then, because I was driving my Ford Econoline 1992 that had 3 miles to the gallon.
Oh, that's
and no windshield wipers.
Yeah, Matt's. I've had a lot of good times in that old restaurant. What's the restaurant or dining experience that you guys can't wait to have when this thing gets situated? Like, what is there a restaurant?
What's the place in Australia we all went to and had that big family?
Chin Chin?
Chin Chin's the spot, man. That's the best meal I've ever had.
Well, guess what? We'll FaceTime you from there when we're there, because we're going several times.
Yeah, I love
Dang.
torture.
Unmasked.
Honestly, I think I like that cookie place better than I don't know, maybe not. They were just
Dude,
also
Oz
good.
just has, like, especially Melbourne, the food scene over there is just stupid, man.
Yeah.
Like, even the hole-in-the-wall Chinese dumpling place you go to just, like, on a whim. Like, there's this place, like, just around the corner from... Oh, my God!
Yeah.
Soup
Yeah.
dumplings in my ears, please.
There's a place that we all really like in the Lower East Side of Manhattan called Thursday Kitchen.
Talk about it.
Oh, man. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, they have
I'm excited
this...
to go back
they have this... what's that really sweet, that rad mushroom that the pigs go find? Truffle?
Truffle.
They have... Is it a mushroom? Truffle? It's some sort of fungi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
They have a truffle mac and cheese that is like... It's the greatest mac and cheese I've ever had in my life.
I don't even know how to deal with the flavors that it puts into my mouth when it's happening. And I have an awful palate for anything.
The only thing you have a palate for is
Hot
wraps
sauce.
and that fucking shit you put on your fingernails.
I know.
So truffles are edible fungi like mushrooms. Unlike mushrooms, they grow underground near tree roots, and the best truffles are widely, insanely... Wait, how much? Oh, I got to see how expensive they are.
So expensive.
Oh, this is way too much information. Does this ever happen to you guys where you're just like, I just want the thing. I want the answer to the question that I asked. And then you open up a site and it just has too much reading.
The pure torture is going to look up a recipe, and then it sends you to the link, and the whole thing is just ads and different links to other recipes. You're like, just tell me the cook time. That's all I want to know.
Could you imagine before the internet, though? It's like, guess I gotta figure this out on my own now. We're like, man,
Encyclopedia Britannica.
ads popping up, and
Yeah.
I gotta look up stuff.
But in the defense of how we used to gather information, it used to be all books. There's no ads in books.
It's true.
There's no links
But there's
in books. There's
time
no
spent.
clickbait in books.
All right.
But in order to get a book published, I think that's kind of the only downfall, in my personal opinion, of the World Wide Web, right? Is that when we used to get information, the information that we had gotten was at least passed through a channel or a filter, a cauldron? No, not a cauldron. What's the little noodle thing that you put noodles in, the water comes out?
But I know what you're talking about. Colander.
Colander, that's the word I'm looking for. A colander of sorts, right? You couldn't get your book published unless it went through these specific pathways, right? Now, to get information on the internet, there's nothing. All you need is an internet connection, which is nothing at all. And so you get websites like that, Steve, where you're like, I'm just looking for a fucking recipe, and why am I getting an ad for a neck massager. This is not the information that I want. That's so annoying. That's by far the most annoying part of the internet.
Yeah,
and I hope that eventually the internet will become, like, I feel like Netflix, right? Netflix to me is all of the annoying parts of TV gone away. I feel like the best selling point of a Netflix is that there's no commercials and you can skip the intro. That's even blows my mind.
I love
that they have a link button that you can just skip the intro. I've seen this already. I never read the words. I just skip it. The fact that they give you that option blows my mind because those names are all the people who actually make the film. Mm-hmm. Kind of bonkers. But I hope at some point in our existence and in our lifetime, there is an internet that you can pay for. Maybe you pay an extra price for the internet, but there's no ads. There's no like clickbait links. It's like a very consolidated, filtered internet that is all stuff that's been like blind test. I don't know how you would do it, but does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
I wish that existed because God, there's too much stuff.
Yeah.
There's too much. It's like turning on the TV nowadays and being like, what do you want to watch? Mm-hmm. It's impossible. You're going to go surfing for like 45 minutes before you find anything that you're like, and then you click on something, you get 15 minutes through it and you're like, I don't know. Maybe there's a better option because there's so many options.
What do you think your life looks like if you take 1 full month off internet completely?
Wow.
Both of you guys.
I mean, that's honestly like...
It'd be an interesting challenge.
Does that include like
everything?
Instagram?
Yeah. Does that include
everything.
Google Maps?
It wouldn't be a problem at all.
But like even like
the internet ever.
But it's like television.
Well,
That's the internet.
but your TV, you're watching TV on the internet, Steve. So that would count.
That's
so
fair.
Any internet at all.
Anything.
Anything?
Any internet. Which is everything. Which is everything.
No, you just said anything, and then you said any internet.
Right, but they're fucking the same thing. Anything in the internet.
No, I mean, like, sorry, I just interpreted it as anything. Like, you want me to go just do nothing for a month?
No. Just remove the internet from your life for a full 30 days. And what does that look like?
That might be one of the hardest things I lived up in Chihuahua for 3-4 years. The reason why I moved was because we couldn't get internet up there. Mm-hmm. If I had a fast internet up there, I would have still been out twiddling my thumbs out in the wilderness.
You'd come to our house in Seattle and just download 100 terabytes of stuff to bring back to Chihuahua.
Yeah, because I could never find. I mean, I must have called just 9 different providers. I had like 3 or 4 extra Verizon pucks to like precisely placed around my pad to see if I could get like better, and nothing. There was no options up there, and eventually I just had to move. I mean, it was like kind of the reason why I'm able to not live in a music city though is because of the joys of connecting and the ability to connect through the internet. Uh-huh. It's allowed me to be in Spokane and not like LA, Nashville, New York.
Yeah.
So 2 answers. One, to make a living, impossible, because that's how kind of like the internet provides that ability
for you.
Yeah. 2, addictive. I don't know. Like we took a trip this weekend, and I maybe spent in total a half an hour on my phone, mm-hmm. and it was looking at travel trailers with Ty.
Yeah,
that was it. And that was the only reason why I got on or had any desire to get on. And it was great. It was really, really nice to be able to put it away. I was telling you on the way back, that little trip invigorates me for work. Mm-hmm. Like the week after the Valentine's special that we just shot, folks who are listening at home, we shot a Valentine's movie, essentially, calling it a special.
You're calling it a movie now, huh?
Well, because you want to give people the gravity of what actually we did, right? When you're
and we also want to be like, we made a movie.
Right. Anyways, it was a lot of work. It was 2 weeks of full balls to the wall, like 18-hour days kind of thing. And so the week after that, we had a week after that I did nothing. I did nothing for like 4 days. I was like, I have there's not any more energy in my body to go and like edit another video or promote something online or even post. Like I'm just like, I don't even want to be on Instagram. I've been on it so much. But that little trip, separating myself from whatever that pull is with the device, because we didn't really have good internet out there anyways, was super rejuvenating. But to do it for a whole month might be real challenging.
I feel like I would just have to get out of town, like go somewhere remote and just have that be the experience instead.
But is there a place that's that remote?
I would just go put myself somewhere where I could just like swim and do activities and be like, I'd have to go on a month-long vacation, basically is what I'm saying, to like substitute for the lack of that internet.
Yeah, I
know, it's so crazy.
Wild development. We were in this, we popped into this brewery when we were in Sandpoint and had lunch. Julian paid. It was sweet.
Oh yeah, dude.
I got an extra pretzel. Thanks, Uncle Dean.
No problem.
And this, towards the end of our meal, this basketball team came in. I think they were playing basketball. I assume they were playing basketball. Probably 7 young boys that couldn't have been older than 11, maybe 10, and their parents. And they sat at the table next to us. The kids were at one table, the parents were at another table. Every kid at the table had a phone, and they were socializing, but they were socializing like for and through their phones. Mm-hmm. I hope that by the time Rudy's of the age where he's socializing a lot with, like, between the age of like 1 and 5, I feel like your parents have a lot of influence on your life. After 5, it's like other kids. Yeah. Seemingly other kids raise other kids.
Totally.
Granted, your parents have influence in your life, of course, but when I look back on my childhood years, like I was hanging out with buddies, like the things like it's my peers, right? And I hope that in the next 5 years, somebody somewhere, something starts regulating the internet and phones to young kids, because last night, obviously I was like in a paranoid state and was thinking about it a lot, but it blew my mind that I remember when I was that age, like, dude, we were roughhousing, we were doing fart jokes. We were like, these kids just sat at the table looking at their phones, like right next to each other. Yeah. And now through a pandemic where your entire education process is on the internet, laptops, like, I don't know. I'm just a little bit terrified of what that will be and how to combat it. Yeah. Like, am I going to have to do these like monthly retreats with my family where we purposely go and turn off our devices so that our kids at least have some of that perception ingrained in their mind? Am I going to be the lame parent that's like, no, you're not getting a phone until you're 18? And they'll be like, but all my friends, I'm 11 and every one of my friends has a Huey Mate with a 400 megapixel camera on it. I don't know how to navigate that in that landscape. And I'm kind of terrified of it, but I don't know how the fuck we started talking about this.
I don't know, but it's interesting. I mean, like, I imagine that that's not an abnormal feeling to have as a parent ever, no matter what generation you grow up in. And although we were on, all three of us, the kind of the back end of like the last group of people, the last generation of people to experience analog and digital, like we know what life was like before the internet.
Right. Yeah.
We have this fear of what it can be for the next generation, just as much as our parents had for us when we were kids. Like, it's a different circumstances and different technologies and different things, but like, and yes, like what's happening now is happening at a rate much faster and crazier than it was back then.
Well, and it's also just like compounded too. It's granted, I don't know, I'm not parenting other kids besides my own. I'm hoping that if parents are giving their children phones before they're 18 years old, they're limiting them at some in some way.
Yeah.
And their time on that device. But the percentage of time that is spent on this vastly and like infinite mechanism, which is the internet, is so much more time than I spent watching TV growing up.
For sure. It's just more access. It's just more available. And
my other thought though, and I'm sure I've talked about this before on the show. I forget how many different topics I've touched or how many times I recycle thoughts, but
I remember them.
Yeah, so maybe you can stop me then. But my other thought is, am I limiting my child by, right? Because like at some point in human history, people looked at the written word the same way that we're looking at the internet.
Yeah.
Because the written word at some point was a new thing, and there were people who were like, I don't know if we should be writing down things. I don't know if we should be recording things, you know? When photographs first started, like people were actively like, I don't want my picture taken. I don't want to be immortalized this is weird. This is witchcraft, right? Movies, the same thing, right? Like there's always been a fear of these evolving inventions. And so am I hindering my child's livelihood because I'm keeping them away from these, from where the world is already turning, right? So like if I actively keep my child away from the knowledge of technology, the internet, computers, gaming, television, all these things, am I limiting his chance to operate in the future world? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you know, kids who didn't grow up around computers that can't type with like their all 5 fingers. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of like, you're kind of limited a little bit in the job market. If you don't, you know, if you give your child an iPad at 11 and they learn how to utilize that appropriately and accordingly, you know, like it could better their chances in the job market eventually. Like,
well, I think what you're talking about though is just, you're talking about just a kind of going rogue where it's like what you need to do is focus on curating the experience more. That's you being active as a parent and like paying attention to what and how the content is being pursued.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've thought about that a lot, is that like, because those tools can be incredibly useful. Like there's some games on iPads that I was hanging out with Jamie Liddell when we were doing our record. He has a young kid who I think is now around 5, but he was about 2 or 3 when I was recording the record with him. And the games that he was allowed to play on the iPad were like super educational.
Yeah, it's about using the tool in a way that you feel is not inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of work, it seems like, for you to have to curate that.
Yeah, but that's what a parent is, though, right?
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
You know, going out and playing catch or doing something like that. But if he's going to sit on the internet for 2 hours, make that experience educational and functional and not distracting from a positive experience.
Yeah, and I guess you have to hope that when you're not around, that your child's discretion is being used in a way that you would approve of and you would be happy with.
That's a black hole. But I think there are now more than ever ways that you can make sure finding less than admirable things on the internet it is harder. Like I hope nowadays, because back when I was a kid, you know, like porn blockers and finding your way to some like crazy sex traffic website. Like my parents had filters for those on our internet growing up, and I still managed to find my way around them at times.
Right.
But I would hope that nowadays that technology is bonkers. It has to be. I haven't dug into it enough, but I would hope that there's something out there that you can really monitor what you're, because I don't personally, to me, it's like, I don't think it's going to be possible for me to fully just keep my kid away from screens.
No,
I love movies. I love TV. I literally love it. I mean, that's some of my fondest memories growing up were like family movie night. And we would sit around the TV, like this like shit brick TV that was like, from 1942. It was like the first pressing. And we would watch Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin movies, man. I just like remember that was like so much fun for me. Mm-hmm. And so I want to be able to share that with my son. But I also I guess I'm a little terrified about who else manages to find his way in his orbit whose parents don't think that way. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the biggest obstacles coming my way, that maybe not obstacles, but just something that I haven't thought about much, is it's not how active I am in my child's relationship only. Mm-hmm. It's how active other parents whose kids have relationships with my kids are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
And so,
but that's going to happen.
It's going to happen, but I've never thought about it up until now. And it's kind of like laying in bed last night, just like, oh, fuck, just like having a panic attack. Yeah. I couldn't
I don't know
get
about
that
you
out of my
guys
mind.
when you were kids, but everything my parents told me that I shouldn't do, I wanted to do more.
Yeah.
So it's about that, too, where I feel like my parents were pretty good about not saying don't, but giving me like this could result of this behavior.
For sure. And I noticed that with Rudy as well, because I was raised with the absolute style parenting. Right. No, you don't do this. You can't do this. And same thing. It totally triggered me into wanting to do those things more. But as a parent, like that's kind of the example I have to go off of, mm-hmm. which is just the way I was raised. Mm-hmm. And so, making a better attempt at, instead of absolute, like I am the authority, you do as I say, more so like how do I guide properly? How do I manipulate is the wrong term, but it is kind of it's a level of manipulation where you want a specific result as a father, but just like saying this is the result and we will get it. One, it's kind of lazy, and two, it rarely leads to that goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're an active parent enough, and I know, especially Taz, where it's like if you just go through those experiences with him, that's how things will be learned and taught in a way that's not manipulation, but is a shared experience that he can reflect on, and when he goes on to his like solo pursuits of things. If you're just no and then you walk away,
right?
You're leaving it to chance. But if you're involved in what he's doing on those things, not overbearing, but obviously just paying attention and just being a part of it, things will work out, because you and Taz are both positive people that don't really go down those negative holes.
Sometimes I do, dude. Last night I was on one.
Well, no, but I mean, like, you're not going to do that with Rudy and be like, hey, Rudy, do you want to see this crazy shit? Because I'm in a dark place.
Right? No. No, not at all. But I have, I mean, God, it's like, especially if you bring another kid in the mix, and like just also while trying to juggle running your own business. And like, I definitely understand how I used to look down on it so much, like going to a restaurant and seeing kids on a pad or on their phone. Mm-hmm. But like now, as somebody who has a toddler, I'm like, oh, I totally get that now. Because for the hour that you're in a public place, you want your kid not to scream at the top of their lungs for the entire time. Totally. And a TV show is a miraculous babysitter. Like, kids focusing on that screen is like, it's hypnotic, right? And so I understand that pull, and I attempt at as often as possible to stay away from that pull of like, just because it's a level of laziness on my behalf, which is like, okay, I want to be able to do something else and not focus on being a parent right now.
Totally.
But I tell you what, my judgmental, how quickly I judge others in that capacity has gone down enormously since having a kid.
I think something that probably is one of the greatest parts of being a parent, which I know nothing about, is the component of learning as you go. You don't know what you're doing. You don't and because you know more than your child, I think there's this like misconception a lot of times when you're, at least for people that thinking about being a parent, it's just like, well, yes, I am the authoritative figure here, like, and so therefore, like, what I say is what it is.
Right.
But you're learning the whole entire time alongside your child, and it's such a great avenue for you to continue to learn and not only just like teach your son the value of life, but to also understand what the value of life is through that educational process, you know, and through like trying to educate your son, keeping in mind that you're learning as well.
Right.
And so not just, and I think maybe, you know, there's some parents that probably just think like, I know everything and therefore like this is what goes and this is how, and these absolutes that we're talking about. And, you know, to just keep in mind that, you know, you're learning together, and they're different learning curves for the parent, obviously, and the child, but that's the coolest part about it, I think. And it kind of opens itself up for you to have a different experience that allows you not to have those panic attacks, you know, at the end of the night or moving forward. And, you know, if you have them, you can at least be conscious of them and recognize, you know, why they're there and try to navigate yourself away from
I think it was there because I took a little too much CBD last night. I mean, it wasn't because I was actually in a state of panic. I think it just...
Right.
Hey, folks. Today, our episode is brought to you in part by our good friends at Ladder Coffee. Head to laddercoffee.com and you can order beans directly from the brewer, as well as some of this beautiful cold brew. Locally owned and operated out of Spokane, Washington. Check it out. Ladder Coffee.
I'm jacked!
It's so interesting that there's been a couple times in my life where I've had like legitimate terrifying experiences, and it's been from eating cannabis.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I mean, but what I've heard is it just metabolizes differently in your body, and so like I remember this is just really dumb of me, but I snuck like some edibles to I didn't even really sneak them. I left them in my bag, but they're just like not labeled as this is weed. You know, it was like a brownie or something, right? Which and I never paid attention when I used to like be a heavy cannabis user to dosage. I would just like, people would, you know, like, here's a cookie, man.
A blunt, dude. Smoke the whole thing.
Well, no, I could know. Yeah. Right? Like that, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take a couple of puffs off that. I'll be fine.
Here's a whole Rice Krispie treat.
Yeah, a whole Rice Krispie treat. I'm like, great. Dude, a whole Rice Krispie treat can like set you on your ass for a week. Mm-hmm. And I took this cookie to France and I ate half of it. And I hallucinated. I remember like me and my buddy Earl were, my friend Earl, that's good.
That's good.
We were in my hotel room and he was just like, Earl's a talker, man. He can just go. And he just went and like, I couldn't, like, you know, you go to a movie and like, when like scenes in a movie where somebody gets hit in the head or they're like in a car wreck and underwater.
Half of Saving Private Ryan.
Half of like just your interpretation of shell shock through cinema. That's what like my experience was. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I remember I turned to him at one point because he was like, "So what do you think about that, man?" And I said, "Bro, I'm sorry." I literally tuned out the first 3/5 of what you said. And that time, and then I mean last night wasn't terrible, but like I definitely was like, whoa, I'm feeling anxious right now. And some of the same memories came back from that experience in France and this one last night, where I was like, literally, I was up to like 1:30, just like sitting, looking straight up at bed, just like, what about?
Have you had that stuff yet, or was that the first time using it?
That was my first time using that. You gonna use it again? Specific. Well, I'm not gonna take that much.
How much
took a whole dopper, like a whole. It's a tincture, you know. So you take a. And I didn't read the dose. I just like took it was like a 1-to-1, but it had so I like CBD stuff.
Yeah.
I can't smoke regular, like, well, I wouldn't say normal people weed, but like I'm only what? is that?
Siri's talking to us from somewhere in the
Siri's
world.
talking to us from
Ghosts.
God.
We have
That was
ghosts.
amazing.
Yeah, I like CBD too. More.
I can only have like stuff that's high in CBD, very low in THC. But what's weird is like just plain CBD doesn't affect me. I've had like just CBD without the THC and it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But if it's a high THC, like a 10-to-1 ratio or a 5-to-1 ratio, it's like my anxiety is usually zilch.
High CBD.
High CBD, yeah. High CBD, low THC, but still a little bit of THC. And how I've heard it explained before is that the actual legitimate marijuana cannabis plant always had an even ratio of CBD and THC, but through just like humans naturally do with fucking dogs and anything they get their hands on, through evolution have warped the plant to be these like 30% THC and like no CBD.
They Ricky Laked it.
They Ricky Laked it. And so those specific strains of cannabis, like I get super paranoid. Unless I'm in the right place. Like I've definitely had a couple hangs with Laura before, Steve, where it's just like we're in the moment together and we're laughing our ass off and it's fun and I'm present.
Yeah.
But it happens when I'm by myself, is when, I get locked inside these like this rat race of my mind and get super paranoid. But
That's when I quit.
that's when you quit was what?
Well, first the like social aspect went for me as far as like being stoned. I just didn't like it anymore, and then I only liked it alone, and then eventually it just like that same thing happened where I just was like, I'm just kind of done with this because I started getting way too in my own head about absolutely nothing.
Oh, so like you used to enjoy how it made you feel in social situations.
Yeah.
And then you stopped enjoying that experience and just started doing a solo experience.
Yeah, like smoke and listen to music or play music or do something like go to the beach.
Yeah.
But then it just went away. I don't know.
When did you start smoking?
Probably like 19.
19. Yeah. I was 20 something, 23 maybe. 24, I forget. The first time I ever smoked was with you, Jules, in Alderwood.
I remember like turning the lights on and off in front of you, just like, let's fuck with them.
Oh yeah, you guys.
Oh, so you're the cause.
Yeah.
No, I mean I had a blast. Like
He was laughing really hard. That's why we weren't doing it to scare him. We were doing it because he was just like uncontrollably laughing.
The first time I ever smoked weed, so like I really had never drank or smoked or done anything when I met Jules and the squad, the Chappus Woo squad. And like I turned 21, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna have some drinks, here and there. But obviously like weed at the time was first of all illegal. So like that was like an absolute no for daddy boy. But I remember I eventually was like, I was around weed enough to be like, this isn't what I've been told it is. This isn't crazy. Like you just do it and then like you kind of
good time.
have some mac and cheese and then you hang out. And so I decided one night, I was like, you guys, like it was probably the week leading up to it. Like, guys, I think I want to smoke weed. And so Jules, Styles Bentley, Tristan, like we had like a seance.
we put it in the
hookah.
The hookah.
So we like grinded it up and put it in the hookah with like all this like flavored tobacco, and we smoked it that way.
That's a bad way to gauge weed too.
It's a terrible way.
Bro, I remember feeling like, because I was laughing so hard. So like we smoked a little bit and then they dimmed the lights and Styles Bentley told me this fantastic story about a dragon and little, like how he goes off on his just like bullshit, incredible whimsical tales.
So good.
And I remember I started laughing at one point, like when I could catch my breath, I was like, you guys, my laughs feel like they're turning inside out. Like I felt like my rib cage, like my sternum had moved to the back of my spine, and I had laughed a hole in my chest cavity.
Oh man.
It was easily one of the greatest experiences of my life.
That's crazy.
And then it was the same way for me. Like I really enjoyed it during social situations for a while, and then just got heavy into it and would like go smoke and just make music for hours. And then at some point, I forget when it was, it just like started making me epically paranoid.
Yeah, same here.
And I don't know if it was because my brain, my brain chemistry had changed over time, or if, like, I'm curious now with the development of like state legal weed and how there is like a relative amount of science going into it now, that you can go to the store and be like, okay, I want to try this kind, right? Because plenty of people will go and get bread, and this specific bread gives them a gut ache and this bread doesn't. And so they stick with this bread, sourdough or like unleavened, whatever.
Yeah.
And weed, I think now that it's, thank God, like opened itself up towards scientific research, which every single drug should do. I bet I could go in there and find like, okay, well, I can't do that one or that percentage or sativa or indica, but like the CBD has done that for me. I'd be interested to see, but yeah, man, sometimes when you ride the dragon, baby, you get the tail, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude, that was crazy, man. Did your guys's well, I don't know. I'm projecting my own paranoia onto how my experiences started happening, which is what led me to stop. Did those come from stopping and then starting again? Because I was consistent with weed for like 8 years or something for a long time. Started smoking like much earlier, and then I got a girlfriend, and my girlfriend was just like, I don't like smoking weed anymore. And I was just like, hang on, my girlfriend says I can't smoke blunts anymore with you guys. So
oh my God, I would have been I knew you after that point. But everybody in our circle had gone through that experience with you, which was like, I ain't doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And you were like the kingpin of smoking blaze.
Oh my God, dude! I smoked so much weed.
So much, dude. You were
We just smoked
Blaze Charles.
quarter blunts, like a quarter of weed. It was literally like a fucking zip. Like it was like a bigger than a big hot dog.
He just took the middle out of a toilet roll.
It was insane. But so like, yeah, my girlfriend was like, you can't smoke weed anymore, Julian. I don't like it when you do that. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm fucking 18
well, to be fair
old.
though, to be fair, that's probably not how it was delivered.
Not at all. To be fair, I mean, she was probably right. I was a fucking just
No, not fair to her. I feel like you're being more fair.
Oh.
Probably what happened was like she never actually told you that she didn't want you to smoke weed.
Oh, yeah.
She just like got mad enough for you to tell that something was wrong.
Yeah, and I
had to discern what.
I had to break the
had to break it down. Like, is it the weed? Is it the
yeah?
And then then you were like trying to figure out why.
Made the decision. Yeah, that's probably why it happened. But I did stop, and then I remember going back to smoking weed after however long it was that I had stopped, and the experience was completely different, and paranoid was kind of at the forefront of that experience.
How many years had you
I don't
been
even
out
think
of the
it
game?
had been well, I don't know. Like I remember being the majority of our relationship, which was 7 years, I was just like not smoking. I mean, I pretty much stopped smoking weed after we started dating, and we started dating when I was 17. So I'd been smoking since I was like 11 or 12. Yeah, just like, you know.
Whenever Julian, sorry to change, I'm not changing the subject. I'm just having a nice little caveat. Whenever Jules is about to tell me when he first started doing something, I kind of always buckle my seatbelt because I'm just like waiting for like, yeah, I pretty much started having sex when I was like 7. I'm like waiting for that to happen.
I know. I mean, it's true though. I mean, a lot of those experiences were really young. It all happened.
It's the truth.
You know, that's why I'm
4 chords in the truth, baby.
Crazy. 4 chords in the truth. 3 chords in the truth.
So yeah, how about you, Steve? Did you just eventually, like, your experience with it got to a point where you were paranoid, or did you take some time off of it and then come back to it and be like, well, this is not what I remember?
No, I was pretty consistent with it for sure. I think once I started drinking more socially and smoking on top of it was really when I kind of like hit the, I was like, this this combo does not work for me. And I preferred the buzz of alcohol more than the high, I think. So I only liked weed in a creative way.
Yeah.
Same.
But then it's just I grew out of it or something. I don't know. It's just I don't know if the weed got stronger and my tolerance got lower or what it was, but it just kind of, instead of enhancing my experience, it definitely hindered my creativity and growth and my thought processes going through certain creative outlets and aspects of my life. And I was just like, this is not for me anymore. And then I would do it on occasion, and that just reaffirmed my relationship with it, of it being a negative aspect of my life. And then I was just like, cool, I'm done with it. But my partner, smokes every day, like before bed.
Yeah.
And she has a great relationship with it. So it is what it is to each person.
It's great awareness to have that when you're smoking, to realize that it's actually hindering you, if it is, because I didn't have that. I remember coming home from some thing that I had been out doing, and my mom had stayed up and I wasn't home. It was like 2:00 in the morning and it was a school night, and my mom, she was up when I got through the door, and I was just baked out of my mind, man. My eyes were so red. I smelled like weed. I'd been hotboxing my van, whatever it was. And she was crying, and she was so upset with me. And she was just like, Julian, you don't need to be like this, you're going down the wrong path. You're literally becoming a fucking loser. And I just remember being like, Mom, you have no idea how creative this makes me. And she was like, Julian, you're literally on the verge of not graduating high school because you're letting your grades drop. You're fucking everything is going down, and you think this thing is making you this creative fucking person that you expect yourself to be, but you're totally blinded. And I didn't have that awareness whatsoever, because I was just convincing myself that weed was my key to the creative flow.
Isn't it funny how little you think you need to be educated when you're young?
Dude,
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference though, is that Jules, I was 26, 27. I wasn't 17.
Yeah.
Jules started smoking when he was 12.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I had friends that were doing that shit too, and it was crazy. I didn't do anything until 19 years old, and then I went pretty hard in the paint. But
did you guys feel the same way about high school and middle school that I did? I mean, I got good grades. I got relatively good grades, a 3. I think I graduated a 3.8.
Well, the curve's easy when your school has 8 people in it.
And 9. But in all honesty, there was a social mechanism to the social group that I was in to getting good grades.
Yeah, I'm sure that exists a lot amongst many groups of kids that grow up in.
For sure. I was just lucky enough to be surrounded by people who cared about getting good grades and their education. But I didn't care about learning. I cared about getting good grades because I didn't it was a stature in I got an A on the test, but I didn't care about learning what I got an A from. I just cared about it's so crazy. Now as a 30-year-old man, I love learning. I love learning things that I'm interested about. And I would imagine maybe back then at that time, there was some of that. But I had
you're learning these arbitrary things. You're not learning stuff that you're passionate about. That's the problem with the general education. Is you're it's not applicable to me at all. Yeah. It's just frustrating.
Yeah.
But I'm hunting that grade because that's the social construct.
Yeah. Right. But what about history? I mean, history now is so enticing. I hated history growing up.
I liked was history.
Really?
That was the only subject that I was kind of when I was turned on, it was to something to classes about history that I was kind of
the only thing
with.
that I was ever interested in, legitimately interested in, was PE. Physical education was my go-to. And then I had a wood shop class in high school. I fucking loved that
wood
class.
shop was cool.
I loved making things.
Yeah.
But every other class, man, I just loathed.
Yeah, man, it's really interesting because I'm the youngest, and both of my older brothers were out of high school by the time I had gotten there. And I think going into high school, prior to getting there, I had these like aspiration. My oldest brother Gabe went to the University of Washington and went to like a frat, and I was like, oh my, that's the way to go. Like, that's what you do. That looks so fun. I even went to a frat party when I was in like 7th grade and like experienced it with him and was just like, whoa, this is crazy. This is everything that I want. And then once I got to high school and didn't have anybody to look up to anymore, I certainly wasn't looking up to my peers. I was just like, and I spent the majority of my time with the athletes. Like, I was an athlete, but I wasn't a good athlete. I just was by proximity to my friends.
He's got a lot of heart, people.
Who were playing.
A lot of heart.
Yeah.
He's a great swimmer, folks. Great swimmer, as we showed in the.
It's interesting because they all had these like disciplinary skills where they needed to get good grades to continue playing, and they also kind of just wanted to. It just seemed like kind of similar like to what you were saying. They didn't necessarily care about what they were learning, but getting good grades and maintaining like this social status amongst their peers and in that institution was important. And for me, at some point, I just like gave up. I was like, I don't like my 11th grade year. I got like a 0.3. Like on my GPA, like it was literally failing every single class because I didn't show up. I didn't care. I was smoking weed every day. And all I did in class was just write raps. Like I was like, I quit football team. I quit all that stuff. And I remember.
Where did that come from? Like like who were you looking up to in that time, in that moment? Because there must have been somebody somebody or something that was telling you that focusing only on this rap writing was going to lead
itself. It was like the rappers I was listening to. I remember like Tupac Resurrection was just on repeat at my dad's house all the time. And so like I had this huge affinity for like hip hop music and like black culture.
I love how hip hop does that. Like, you know, all my favorite
to these like upper middle class.
No, like
kids.
if you listen to hip hop lyrics, obviously I can't generalize every hip hop lyric, but there's a lot of like hip hop lyrics about selling drugs and fucking off, but yet like the hip hop people that I look up to will tell you like stay in school and you know it's an interesting take on the culture versus like the hip hop is such a huge part of our culture now that hip hop icons are like idols for young kids, but hip hop music, right? Like, I mean, that music comes from like struggling in the ghetto and figuring out how to like claw your way to the top. And so for young, like affluent white kids, we're like, oh, I guess we gotta like sell drugs and like fuck off and smoke weed in order to like be a hip hop artist.
Right. And there was this period of time in my life where I was so naively, like wishing and hoping. I was so naive that I had been like, God, man, if only I grew up in like a lesser way. Because then I would actually be able to like warrant these feelings that I'm having. Right now, I feel like, God damn it, like I don't get to have these feelings, but I'm having them and I can't justify them because I'm like this like middle class kid. But I had all this angst surrounding like my parents' divorce and my fucking brothers who beat the shit out of me and all this shit that I was like, I just want to like express myself out and I want to have these feelings. And I'd be like, I wish I grew up in the fucking ghetto. And it was just like, you are such an asshole for thinking that way.
That's a huge asshole thing to think.
It's such, but that's just like, that was why. And again, like my,
I don't know if it's an asshole.
It's not that. Well,
it's just very short-sighted.
Yeah.
It's
just
very
ignorance.
short-sighted.
It's an affliction of privilege.
100%. And I don't know. I wanted to feel like my voice meant something else than what I was being fed from whatever institutions that I was in. And I don't know, like I just turned off, and it's so stupid because I feel like I completely construed what the messages that I was getting from these like artists. Like Tupac was like my hero growing up, you know. Still, I love that guy and his music, and it was so influential to me. And I think where I went wrong was like expecting that my life had any relationship to his whatsoever, and thinking that like I get it, Tupac. I resonate with that. So therefore, like, me and you are the same. It's just like, Julian, you're a fucking idiot, dude. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean,
I let it get the best of me.
I don't know. I think that at that age, I mean, there's a reason why every war in the history of wars was fought primarily by 18-year-old kids, because
yeah, they were.
I think there's something
passion
about that window of time in your life where you have chemicals coursing through your body that are so absurd that to not be misled at that age, I think, is more astounding.
Yeah.
Like to focus on something and maintain focus on that single thing and not be deluded by all these crazy things swirling around you at all times, in my opinion, that's the absurd thing. Like, even me growing up the way that I did, man, like I had it so good, and I just incredible parents and incredible community around me, and I still managed to look back on my teenage years and be like, God damn it! God damn it, boy! You wasted so much time.
Yeah.
You wasted so much time, so much energy. Like, I'm constantly, I mean, just time now being a dad is really I constantly talk about this, but it's like, oh my, I get it. I get why people in their 60s or 70s were like, oh yeah, just time. Like, that's the one thing that I'm constantly remiss by, is the amount of time that we don't have left when you get to that age. And I'm in my 30s, like, God, I wish I would have spent my time better. I wish in my 20s I would have spent my time a little better, to set me up for where I'm sitting right now, a little easier. Granted, you can't change it, and it's pointless to go back. It's funny, I was sitting last night while I'm having my panic attack. Like, I kept talking about this. This quote had kept coming up constantly. Worry is like paying a debt you don't owe. I kept being reminded of that, like, of this worry, like I'm worrying, I'm future projecting on this thing that doesn't exist currently, right? And that quote always manages to stick with me. Worry is like paying a debt you don't owe. It's pointless, right? It's pointless. That's off topic from what we were talking about earlier, but I think especially going through a divorce. Divorces are terrible. I can't imagine what a divorce would feel like, but especially like a messy divorce. Getting sidetracked and identifying or finding your identity in something as like epic as hip hop, you know, like I think everybody falls for that. Not falls for not like they're trying to trick you, but like
resonate with
there's
it.
there's resignation in all of that.
Totally,
There's
man.
nothing wrong with that.
Right. And there's, I think, desperately looking for role models in places that I was trying to connect with. And like, even when I started doing the rap thing, it wasn't like I was resonating so hard that I was like talking about the same things in my own music. I was like talking about my own experience and trying to be as honest about that as I could. But the part that I was like not fully understanding or aware of was that like my life actually was good in a really amazing way if I was able to pull myself away from it. Yeah, but for so long I was just like, I don't have any role models, and I'm gonna be something. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna show these people what I got. And it's just like, all right. And it was not like, you met me at this time. I wasn't like a hardcore like gangster type of guy. I was a silly kid. It was just trying to have fun.
You had an eyebrow piercing. I thought that was pretty hardcore.
Yeah, I was hardcore, dude. I had my nips pierced too.
I know. It's like a 17-year-old kid with his nipples pierced. I was like, what is this kid seen?
I had like the same thing, but with like punk rock and hardcore music, like alternative, being like, anti-establishment, political, anti-religion. Like I had that kind of a phase for myself.
Yeah.
What age were you?
That was probably like 13 to
Who were those
18,
bands
19.
for you?
I mean, like Minor Threat, Black Flag, Good Riddance, you know.
I don't even know who those are. I never had a punk rock phase.
The Descendants, huh? No.
Green Day.
Yeah, sure.
Sum 41. Actually, I hated those
But
guys.
what did you like? What was your experience going through that, Steve? Did it change your behavior? Did it change your fashion sense? Did it like? I mean, I think anytime, that's the power of music, right? It changes a lot of you. Did you go through those changes?
Yeah, definitely. I went from wearing just like skate clothes to just wearing band shirts and Dickies, Converse, and I just like the message of, even these guys were like screaming about like veganism and tearing down the machine and all this stuff I really didn't know about, but I related to it. But in the same kind of capacity, Julian, that's why I was bringing it up, is that you were living vicariously through these lyrics of being like, oh, I wish I was, a poor kid growing up with the struggles to make me inspired to get out. Where it was like these guys were, middle class or lower white kids that are calling out all the privilege and all the experience and all this shit. Whereas like I grew up in a very rich city on the other side of the tracks, not being that rich, but in comparison to anywhere else, I was doing fine.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's where my angst went towards, was being like, fuck all these people that have $8.6 million homes. Like, why do they need that? What's the point?
Yeah.
They've never seen rooms in their house. So that was my like privileged, just being like, dude. And then eventually learn to just like settle down and you're fine.
Yeah. What do you think that is in young boys?
I think you don't have responsibilities to anything except for yourself. Like, you're not responsible for paying rent. You're not responsible to a partner. You're not responsible for a kid. You're not responsible for paying insurance. You're not responsible for paying, having respect of your peers' work. You're just like you.
Right, but why does that lend itself towards angst? Because, well, I don't know if I went through that phase. I went through that phase like earlier, like 7th, 8th grade. I actually kind of miled out in high school and was pretty straight edged. But like in middle school, I remember like 7th, 8th grade, I went through this stint where I was just pissed. I was just pissed at everything. I was getting in trouble at school. I was fighting and talking about wiener jokes and stuff.
Again, I never went through that stuff. Like Julian said, like I was still just a silly guy.
But you
just feel that, like you just think that way.
But so you didn't have like an angsty era? Oh.
I mean, I think you're just trying to. I think you desperately want to, kind of make sense of what your identity is. And when you're young, you don't know what it is. And like, and people will tell you, parents or authority figures or teachers will be like, look, you guys are young, and you hear that and you're just like, you don't fucking know. I'm young. You don't have any idea what's going on in my brain right now. You have no idea what I'm experiencing. And it's just like, yes, I do. Because I was also 16 once. And like,
right.
I get it. I've been there. But when you're that age, you're just like, you don't have any reference for anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
You're only growing up, and you're only getting to this place where like you're becoming you. And so like, I mean, I don't think everybody has to experience the angst, but I think it comes from this place of just like, it's typically not just handed to you, like this identity. You're not just like, unless you're this great kid who's just kind of like got life kind of in a place that's being navigated for you, and you're just like, I don't know exactly how my life's going to go. If you don't, and you're kind of trying to figure it out, and anything is happening in your life that kind of shakes the feathers of that situation, you're going to like attach yourself to that and be like,
attractive.
It's
foreign, it's attractive, it's different.
Yeah.
You're learning.
Yeah, and
I'm curious what that is though in human beings.
The grass is greener.
Well, no, just like our natural, what seems like a natural desire to formulate identity. Like, what is that? Where does that come from? Is that the ego? Is like the ego compel us to like find our position in these
part of it,
yeah.
Mechanical.
It's also a need.
Communities?
It's also a necessity. Like you need.
Well, you don't
want.
actually need to figure out your identity. Like it's not.
Some people do.
It doesn't lend. Well, if you're going to die, you're not going to die from your inability to finding your identity. So it's not an actual necessity, right? Like shelter, food, hydration.
Sure, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So it's like, it's an extra, right? And we've found ourselves far enough away from legitimate in-your-face survival that these other problems present themselves, which is, where do I fit in this community? What kind of music do I enjoy? What kind of movies am I in? And then when we connect to those identities as a manner, it's almost like we connect to those identities in a way to make us feel better than we do.
It's still human nature.
Right. I'm saying, but right. But it's human nature for sure. It's a natural tendency, I think, when placed amongst communities.
Yeah.
But
that's also a natural thing for the most part, is having a sense of community.
Totally. But if the community is more connected to the things that actually lend themselves towards survival, finding food, finding shelter, those things.
When you have those things that are provided for you, what are you going to do?
Right.
Like you have food, you're fed at school, you have water, your parents provide you with a bunch of stuff, presumably.
Yeah.
So what do? The only thing you have is your clothes or your identity, your perception from your peers. It's the only thing you can control.
Yeah, wow. It's interesting that it presents itself that way, though. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying it's not natural, but like this mechanism in human beings to struggle, like whether it's fight or flight, whether it's like leftover evolution from our ancestors to be like, I need to be in fear of something. I need to be like defending against something. There's like a mechanism, I think, in all of us to figure out what it is that's at the gates trying to break down the wall. And when all of our needs are met, we manufacture what those things are. Like what is depression? What do I need to be afraid of happening to me? Like we all do it. I did it last night for like 3.5 hours in my bed. And that's such an interesting study for me to think about. Because it's not necessary. It's not necessary for us to do that, but it's like the ultimate trial of human experience is manufacturing those tensions and manufacturing those stresses and why we do it and where it comes from. I mean, not where it comes from necessarily, but like how to overcome it.
Yeah. Well, there's a song about it called Naturally. This guy wrote.
Naturally, baby. Naturally plugging my music, folks. You can check me out on Spotify.
Damn it! I had a thought, and that totally tracked me off.
Well, this is. I love these podcasts. Like just catching up with you guys is so much fun. And it's kind of wild that we get to do this because we just allow ourselves the time to do it. Like, it's not like we have this gigantic following of people who are like, please talk amongst yourselves.
Tell me about your weed stories, man.
I think a lot of people dig these ones too. People that listen to us are listening to us.
Well, I know, but I'm just, I just saying it.
Yeah.
Just enjoy sitting down and like talking through life with you guys. I wish that it didn't take like 5 cameras and microphones for us to do it more frequently. Although when we hang out,
ego, Alan, that's our ego.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and also just to there you go. Going back on that thought, when we can bring it back to this, you're talking about like defense mechanisms and trying to like manufacture these tensions for yourself to kind of move through life, and like, you know, your and myself, all three of us, any of us are the way we are by route of wanting to survive in the world the way that we do. Like you're funny, not necessarily because you always want to be funny, but because it's probably uncomfortable for you not to be in moments when you're just like, this is what my defense mechanism is going to be in this moment. So I'm going to like use humor to combat the actual insecurity that I'm feeling right now. And I might be projecting that onto you because I feel that way for myself.
Yeah. Not to change your track, cause I want to keep you going on your process of thought, but it's interesting about those specific things. Like because I look at humor at times as a defense mechanism, but also as an offense mechanism. I don't think we talk about offensive mechanisms either. Like humor to me, so many times can be the language of whether or not I'm going to get along with somebody. Like if somebody like when I first meet people, I will say specific things that if they can catch it and toss it back, I'm like, oh, this is going to go well. So it's more of like an offensive.
But what's the alternative if that's not the case?
The alternative to that?
Yeah. So like you're doing that because you're like, I want to make sure this person can be my friend, so I'm going to toss it out there.
Yeah.
But what's the alternative to that? Like you're just not going to do it and you're going to act.
The alternative to that is wasting time.
Well, there you go then, because like it's just
wasting time listening to people's mundane lives.
There you go then, because like that's the defense. Like it can't be an you can scope it as an offensive.
Well,
mechanism,
no, it's not a defense mechanism because I'm not necessarily like. Well, yeah, I guess you could frame it as a defense mechanism, but I utilize it as an offensive mechanism, right? Like I'm gonna take the ball in this situation and penetrate this specific part of the basketball court to see if there's any open shots.
Yeah.
And if there's not any open shots, I'm just going to like give you the ball and take off. That's how humor presents itself to me. That's how specific topics present themselves to me in like human relationship.
Uh-huh.
So I think that humor developed in me personally, because I don't know. It's interesting to think about. I don't think it was like a defense mechanism. My folks were always funny, and I feel like it was a tool that I developed as a youngster towards that offense mentality of figuring out like who I could fit amongst.
Right. But it probably, and I'm only just because we're having the conversation, like it probably fits into like your need to have like a really clean house and your need to like present the way you do on stage and the way that you like just communicate all around, because you want to impress upon people a certain way that represents you the way that you want to be seen. And therefore, like that's why I asked like what the alternative is to that thing that you consider to be on the offense for you, which is like I'm doing this to kind of like to shoot it, to take my shot, and if it doesn't work, then I walk away. But like, but if you're not taking your shot, then you're not doing anything, and you have to take your shot. So that the only way you know how to approach that is by doing all these things you do, because otherwise you're not going to get what you get. And so I'm
confused if there's a question in there.
Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry. I'm fucking all this up. I don't know. I'm just trying to kind of like go back to this whole idea of like offense and defensive mechanisms. And I think like you do the things you do because you want to represent yourself the way that you want to represent yourself. And
well, I don't know if everything that we do is in an attempt to represent ourselves a specific way. Like not everything that I do I think of how does this represent me? Mm-hmm. There's plenty of things I do that that concept doesn't come into my peripheral in any shape or form. Mm-hmm. But then there are other things that I'm like, oh, well, I'm precious about this because I think this does represent me in a specific light. And so I'm going to manipulate my behavior specifically towards this. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not everything is based upon how I want to be represented in a community.
No, I mean, I've seen you piss on your own jacuzzi, so like, you're letting it fly every once in a while.
Every once in a while, dude, I just tie one on and let it ride. And that's only because I don't have
I mean, amongst friends, you better not be putting on a show, otherwise we would know you're not genuine.
Yeah, I'm pretty... I think we're all very transparent in our interactions. Now, granted, if you were to unpack all of that meticulously, yeah, somebody who has way more time than I wish they had could probably fold it into a little manila
right
scenario until, well, this was because of your parents' divorce, and this was because you weren't pretty, and this was, it's all, I mean, but like, who the fuck cares?
I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe you do eventually. It's like this whole conversation seemingly, is surrounding identity.
Well, it's not that I don't care that it happens. It's interesting that like that can be unpacked that way.
Yeah.
But like, I don't care to know how a cell phone works or why it works. I just care that it works. So like it to me, because I'm not going into cell phone technology, unpacking all of that like doesn't seem to serve me very well. And so like unpacking why I specifically like utilize humor in relationships, because I'm not a psychiatrist, like I just like that diatribe doesn't interest me as much as like talking about Gary Payton's jump shot in the early 2000s, and it's not that it doesn't exist or that it's not important. It's just me personally, I don't like unpacking that shit. I'm like, whatever, it just is,
Yeah. I think that's just like my blessing and curse of my own life is that I don't know about anything until I'm like actually like really understood about the depths of that thing. So like if I'm going to try to understand something, I really have like math. Great. I understand that X plus Y equals Z. I get that is the truth. I just don't know why. And if I don't know why, I can't continue to just like write that off, that like it works.
No, it's not Y, it's Z.
What?
He says X plus Y equals Z, but I don't know why.
Oh.
I'm like, well, because it's Z.
That's a good one.
That's a good joke, bro.
That's a popsicle stick joke. Come on.
Alan, what are you deflecting right now?
Yeah.
With your humor.
I'm deflecting losing listeners.
Oh, they're gone for sure.
They're gone.
We lost them about.
No, I mean
about
that's an
50
interesting part about you, Jules, which I think is always it doesn't baffle me because it's just interesting for me that you're very connected to like the ins and outs of why we do specific things and what they mean and where they come from.
I'm fascinated by behavior and like why we are the way that we are.
Yeah.
It's probably why I got into acting to begin with, because it's just like that's the only thing that I can tap into to have that experience of trying to understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool.
It might be cool. It might be awful too. It fucking puts me in my head a lot.
Definitely at times it's awful.
Yeah, it puts me in my head all the time, man.
I mean, not awful. It's never awful. It's just like, it's definitely a thing. I think being your friend, I mean, Steve might attest to this as well. Like there's times where it comes in. Most of the time, it's the greatest thing because somebody cares enough to like be concerned about why you're feeling the way you are. As your friend, that comes into play a lot, and I think that's why you have so many deep connected friendships. But just like anything, everything casts a shadow. So there's definitely times where it's like, Jules, I can't fucking go into this with you right now, bro. I'm not trying to like talk. I'm just trying to watch Reba McEntire, bro. Just me and Reba McEntire.
And I don't have the capacity to not.
You don't have the capacity to turn it off.
Yeah.
No. Just kind of like I don't sometimes have the capacity to turn off humor.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe that's the downfall of these little attributes that we have.
I mean, at the end of the
personality.
day, I think all three of us have excellent attributes of who we are as people, and these character flaws that we suppose we probably have are actually probably really great things that are what make us.
Well, Steve has
like
never admitted to any character flaws throughout the 12 years that I've known him. So,
yeah, he's pretty perfect.
He's a perfect boy.
Truth.
A perfect boy.
This has been another wonderful episode of How Good's This with your three favorite baby boys.
DM How Good's This podcast on Instagram and ask us questions or things.
Yeah, could you guys hit us up on the Instagram or wherever we are, or on the YouTube page, and just ask questions you want to hear. We can even like have people call in. We can do it. We could literally do anything we want. There's no limits to this.
We can do anything we want, but we won't do everything we want.
I think. Well, speak for yourself, Daddy. Yeah, I think kind of the goal moving forward is to do like equal amounts of these with just ourselves as we do with guests. Maybe
these are my favorite. I love interviewing and meeting new people. There's a thrill in in meeting and becoming friends with new people. And we've done so many rad interviews with human beings that have just enlightened our perspective of a litany of things, from losing a partner to cancer to astrology to playing in the NFL. Like, we've had, I mean, I don't know how many episodes we've technically done, 28 or something.
There's 28 that are out as of now, but this might be like in the 30s.
Yeah, it's a really cool mechanism towards like sitting down and taking time to dialogue with people, because me personally, I naturally just like fill my time. And this is a really wonderful way of slowing down and catching up. And I'm always thrilled when it's just us three in the studio, like just shit shooting. When we first started talking about making a podcast, I wanted to call it Shit Shooters. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that that's actually what we're just doing. We didn't name it Shit Shooters. We named it How Good's This because that's like very special to me and my perspective on life. But really what we do is just shoot the shit, which is awesome.
That's all we ever do, man. And that's all that people ever that come on want to do with us anyways.
Wear your sunglasses.
I'm glad that we're like not people that take ourselves seriously enough to like actually say things that people are going to like combat and be like, no, you guys are wrong. It's just like we don't say anything of a matter of fact. Like we're not sitting here like
I think there's definitely a when you do a podcast with people that you know intimately, who have seen you in every scenario of life that is thrown your way, and also too, when you choose to do a show with people who don't take themselves as seriously as maybe people can, I think it lends itself towards an approach of humility, which I personally like. My favorite people to listen to are people who are like, hey, listen, I don't know shit.
I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Yeah.
I don't know shit. This is my opinion and my perspective, okay?
I'm just going to go on a fucking caveat.
Yeah, we don't claim to know.
Dude, I'm going on a Plymouth caveat here.
Plymouth caveat. We don't claim to know the answers to a goddamn thing, and that's kind of what's so great about the unlimited amount of dialogue that we can continue having.
Yeah, it's fun to explore, too. I love you guys very much, and I love all of you at home who have taken the time to listen this far. We love you very much. Be safe. We'll see you soon.
What's for lunch? Serious.
Fucking caviar.
Oh, nice.
Oh, boo-boo, did you just make it to the end of the video? Yes, you did. Do you want to see more videos just like this one, huh? Do you?
Well, then head over to patreon.com/Live at the Lodge, where you can support the How Good's This podcast, as well as the entire Live at the Lodge family.
Yep, you're going to get exclusive merch, personalized shout-out videos. Me and Jules, we're going to show up at your house and baptize your nephew, huh? Check it out, patreon.com/Live at the Lodge.